Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Imagine a world where, the most shocking conspiracy theories, they aren't just theories floating around online.
Right.
They're someone's deeply personal, chilling reality, a reality that unfolds over decades.
It's quite a claim.
Yeah. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a profoundly controversial, really disturbing account, one that challenges our very understanding of, well, human agency, memory, power structures we kind of take for granted.
And what's truly fascinating here, and unsettling, I guess, is how this narrative, Brice Taylor's narrative in her book, Thanks for the Memories from 1999,
Right.
it forces us to confront not just, individual trauma, but this alleged hidden network, operating, she claims, at the highest levels of society.
Highest levels.
Yes, detailing claims of extreme mind control, ritual abuse, a systematic dehumanization that, if true, it completely reshapes how you see reality.
So our mission for this deep dive, just to be clear for everyone listening, we want to guide you through these complex, often disturbing, sometimes almost unbelievable claims.
Right.
The ones presented in this specific source material.
Exactly. We're not here to prove or disprove.
No, absolutely not. We're here to meticulously distill the key information as she presents it, explore the implications she draws, and just help you understand the narrative in a clear, structured way. Without endorsing or refuting the claims themselves, it's really about providing a comprehensive understanding of the source, letting you form your own informed perspective. Because it's a story that demands, well, careful consideration.
And it raises this undeniable, really provocative question for all of us, doesn't it? What happens when an individual's most intimate personal history supposedly intertwines with alleged covert government programs, secret societies, creating a life, she says, was meticulously controlled right from birth?
Controlled from birth. Wow.
Yeah. So we'll explore the specific details, the disturbing patterns that emerge from this firsthand account. It offers a unique glimpse, really, into a narrative of extraordinary suffering, resilience to, and this unwavering struggle for freedom, all as meticulously described by the author. It's a deep dive into the very architecture of alleged human manipulation.
The author's startling claims and purpose.
Okay, so to start this journey into what is, an incredibly dense and profoundly personal story, we first need to understand the person at the center of it, Brice Taylor. But that name itself, as she reveals, isn't her real name. Brice Taylor is the pseudonym for Susan Ford.
Right.
And her story, as she presents it, kicks off with a detail she claims was hugely significant, foundational even to her alleged future role in this hidden system.
What's that?
She states she was born on January 20th, 1951, which is conspicuously Presidential Inauguration Day.
Oh, wow. Yep.
And she believes this specific birth date wasn't just a coincidence. She thinks it was a deliberate part of her grooming, carefully selected, orchestrated for a predestined, pivotal position within this deeply disturbing alleged covert network.
And this grooming, as Taylor describes it, it unfolded into a life of multiple alleged roles, each one kind of more chilling than the last.
Like what?
Well, she claims she was systematically exploited as a sex slave, a human tape recorder designed to recall specific conversations verbatim, apparently, and a human mind file computer, like a living hard drive for classified information.
A human hard drive.
Yeah, the core concept here, as her narrative meticulously outlines, is that her mind wasn't just influenced, it was systematically compartmentalized, programmed, making her effectively a functional, unwitting tool for others.
Unwitting, that's key.
Absolutely. What's truly unsettling and central to her whole account is her assertion that she played both conscious and unconscious roles.
How does that work?
Well, for instance, she writes about her conscious belief that she was leading a completely normal student life. She even believed she was a virgin, despite, allegedly, this deep programming that dictated her participation in horrific acts completely unbeknownst to her conscious mind. The disconnect was apparently so profound, she says her conscious self has zero access to these programmed realities.
That's hard to even imagine.
It is. And she conveys this shattered mental state, this huge internal struggle, by describing herself as feeling like a person with no arms or legs attempting to run an Olympic marathon. Just desperately trying to piece together a coherent life when her very mind felt fragmented, occupied, controlled by unseen forces.
So how does a life like that, supposedly so intricately programmed, even begin to unravel? It sounds almost impossible.
Well, as Taylor recounts it, it was anything but straightforward or easy. She states that her memories, these fragments of a hidden past, started surfacing around age 35.
Yeah.
And what's particularly striking about this initial breakthrough, as she describes it, is that it happened without, direct traditional therapy intervention.
Really? How then?
She credits meditation and dedicated journaling during a period of reflection on Kauai in Hawaii. Those were the catalysts, she says, for this terrifying, deeply personal awakening. It's presented as this raw, unfiltered emergence of a buried history, a gradual recollection of her shattered self.
So not like a sudden flood, but fragmented pieces.
Exactly. And it's crucial to grasp the nature of this memory recovery. Taylor emphasizes it was fragmented, non-chronological, and deeply disorienting.
I can imagine.
She recounts that, in the early stages, therapists she sought out were often just unfamiliar with concepts like severe dissociation or ritual abuse, which led to initial disbelief or profound misunderstanding of her experiences, which must have been incredibly isolating.
Yeah, you'd feel completely alone.
Right. And this is where, according to her account, her alleged photographic memory, a tool supposedly designed and cultivated by her controllers to store vast amounts of information, ironically backfired on them.
How so?
Instead of just retaining data for their use, it started flooding her conscious mind with intrusive, often horrifying flashbacks, and what she calls body memories.
Body memories, like physical sensations.
Exactly. Vivid physical sensations linked inextricably to these repressed events. To illustrate just how detailed and, frankly, almost impossible these recovered memories seemed, she recounts an infant memory.
An infant memory?
Yeah, falling off a dining room table in a house they had left when she was merely 6 months old.
Wow. Could she verify that?
She claims her mother later validated the precise details she remembered about the house, its layout, the specific event, which lends this almost surreal weight to the vividness, the alleged authenticity of these repressed recollections. It suggests a level of recall far beyond typical childhood memory.
So ultimately, sharing the story, it wasn't just about her own healing or getting justice for herself.
No, according to her, her narrative is driven by an even more powerful, almost desperate motivation. Her fervent desire to free her own children, Kevin, Kelly, and Danny, from what she believes was a similar generational programming.
Generational, affecting her kids too.
Yes. She emphasizes that the idea of her children enduring the horrific experiences she allegedly went through was a more excruciating pain than physical death, a pain that transcended even her own suffering.
That's, hard to fathom.
And the situation, as she describes it, was compounded by a truly devastating realization. Her assertion that her own husband was also programmed and unknowingly participated in her abuse, and most agonizingly, that of their children.
Oh my God, unknowingly.
That's her claim, which, as she recounts, made the entire situation even more heartbreaking and complex. It transformed her immediate family into unwitting participants in the very system that allegedly enslaved her.
So where do you even turn then?
Well, Taylor speaks of her unwavering commitment, articulating this fervent belief that the public needs to be fully aware of these alleged practices and must take decisive action to abolish what she uncompromisingly calls this dark controlling system.
A call to action.
Definitely. She offers a powerful statement of her resolve, deeply rooted in her faith, quoting her prayers for divine guidance and asserting with unshakable conviction, "I am a woman who loves God and her family more than life itself and will not bow down to fear. In many ways, I am fearless, for I have nothing left to lose." Wow. That profound conviction, born from unimaginable personal suffering, serves as the unwavering engine driving her entire narrative, transforming her personal trauma into a public warning.
The historical and structural context of mind control.
Okay, so as we delve deeper into Brice Taylor's narrative, her personal claims start to intertwine with this broader, often hidden history of mind control, linking her experiences to this long, shadowy lineage.
Right, it's not just presented in a vacuum.
No. And the very term brainwashing itself, she notes, has this fascinating kind of unsettling origin. It's described in the source material as a comically euphemistic term.
Comically euphemistic, yeah.
Invented in the 1950s by Edward Hunter, a CIA propaganda specialist. And her view is that this seemingly innocuous term was deliberately crafted to veil much darker, more sinister intentions behind a palatable facade, basically normalizing what was allegedly an invasive psychological warfare technique.
And the source material meticulously traces a documented history of U.S. government mind control projects, revealing this systematic, evolving effort to control human thought and behavior.
What kind of projects?
Well, we learn about Project Shatter, initiated by the Navy in 1947, ostensibly to research truth drugs in response to alleged Soviet successes. But the author suggests this official explanation was just a convenient cover story, should the program ever get exposed. Then there was Project Bluebird in 1950. More ambitious, approved by CIA Director Allen Dulles. Its objectives were chillingly broad. Everything from conditioning personnel to prevent information extraction under duress, to investigating individual control for interrogation, even exploring methods for memory enhancement.
So controlling memory both ways, preventing leaks and enhancing recall.
Exactly. Then, in 1951, Bluebird gets renamed Project Artichoke, focusing more overtly on offensive interrogation techniques, aggressive use of hypnosis, powerful psychoactive drugs.
Okay, Artichoke. I've heard of that one.
Yeah. And these early initiatives, the source makes clear, were direct foundational precursors to the notorious Project MKULTRA, which officially began in '53, allegedly building upon the clandestine research and lessons learned from Shatter, Bluebird, Artichoke.
MKULTRA is the big one most people know.
It is. And to illustrate the alleged scale and ethical breaches, the source references this really unsettling 1994 U.S. News & World Report article, The Cold War Experiments. This expose revealed a vast government program that allegedly used thousands of Americans as guinea pigs for experiments involving radiation, LSD, nerve gas, electroshock, really dangerous stuff.
Thousands.
As guinea pigs.
That's the claim. The source also points out efforts by Senator John Glenn to pass Human Research Protection Acts in response to these revelations, highlighting a congressional awareness and concern, though the article implies these legislative efforts often had limited impact back then.
So Congress knew something was up.
It seems so. It's also noted that Sidney Gottlieb, the director of MKULTRA, reportedly devoted his years after leaving the CIA to trying to get on the side of the angels instead of the devils, which, if true, speaks volumes about the alleged nature of his work.
Trying to make amends, maybe. Now here's where Brice Taylor's narrative takes a particularly dark and yet controversial turn, linking these U.S. initiatives to, well, the Nazis. Yes, the Nazi connection. The source introduces Project Monarch, Nazi mind control, as detailed by Ron Patton, asserting an alleged direct transfer of Nazi scientists and their specialized expertise into U.S. intelligence and research via the clandestine Operation PAPERCLIP.
PAPERCLIP, right. Bringing scientists over after the war.
Exactly. A prominent figure mentioned is General Reinhard Gehlen, a German intelligence specialist. His invaluable wizardry, the source says, in intelligence gathering and psychological warfare, is credited with the very formation of the CIA right after World War II.
So a former Nazi allegedly helped set up the CIA.
That's the assertion. Effectively birthing the Cold War, the author suggests, and integrating alleged Nazi mind control expertise directly into the core of U.S. operations, a disturbing continuity between former enemies.
Wow. Okay, and it goes back even further than that.
The source delves deeper, tracing the historical roots of mind control way beyond modern intelligence agencies, back to what it calls mystery religions and ancient occultism.
Ancient occultism.
Yeah, citing the Egyptian Book of the Dead as an early reference to rituals involving torture, drugs, hypnotism for enslavement and control, suggesting these are ancient practices, continually refined, and chillingly linked to Satanism throughout the ages, implying this direct, unbroken lineage.
Okay, that's a huge claim.
It is. The narrative connects the Illuminati, formed in 1776, allegedly under Rothschild patronage, with their goal of a new world order, to research at seemingly legitimate institutions, like the Tavistock Institute in London, studying the breaking point of humans.
So much trauma someone can take.
Essentially. And
Okay.
the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute in Germany, pioneering early medical and psychiatric mind control techniques, laying groundwork.
Right.
But the most chilling connection, perhaps the most contentious, is to Dr. Josef Mengele, the angel of death from Auschwitz.
Mengele.
His unprecedented research into human endurance, pain, psychological manipulation. Despite his horrific war crimes being downplayed at Nuremberg, the source alleges was seen as a significant bonus to U.S. interests, effectively legitimizing and incorporating his findings.
So, using Nazi research.
That's the claim. Furthermore, the source highlights an alleged link between Henry Kissinger and Project MKULTRA, a military program supposedly for biological weapons, with the Rockefellers allegedly supporting similar research through funding the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute. It paints this picture of a vast, interconnected web spanning centuries, driven by a hidden agenda.
Okay. With that deeply unsettling historical backdrop, from ancient occultism to Nazi experiments to U.S. intelligence, we finally get to the alleged architecture of Project Monarch itself. The framework Brice Taylor claims defined her life.
Right, Project Monarch. The source defines it not just as a program, but as this particularly sinister form of trauma-structured dissociation and occultic integration.
Okay, break that down. Trauma-structured dissociation.
The purpose, as described, is to systematically compartmentalize the human mind into multiple distinct personalities. What psychology now calls dissociative identity disorder, or DID.
DID, multiple personalities.
Exactly. And the name itself, Project Monarch, the author points out, is loaded with disturbing symbolism, not royalty, but the monarch butterfly.
The butterfly. Why?
Taylor states that when a person undergoes severe trauma via electroshock, a key programming method, they experience this profound feeling of lightheadedness, as if one is floating or fluttering like a butterfly. This sensation is allegedly deliberately reinforced.
Wow.
And the symbolism extends further. Transformation, metamorphosis. From caterpillar, the original person, to cocoon, induced dormancy, fragmentation, to butterfly, a new creation, a reprogrammed alter, a controlled slave.
That's incredibly dark symbolism.
It is, and it extends to what the source calls the marionette syndrome, where a slave, the victim, is meticulously controlled by a master, the programmer or handler, pulling the strings of the created alters.
Like a puppet master.
Precisely. The source notes that about 75% of Monarch victims are allegedly female, attributed to supposedly higher pain tolerance and dissociating more easily than males, making them more suitable subjects from the programmer's view.
And what were these victims supposedly used for?
According to the author's claims, mainly for covert operations, prostitution, and pornography, with their notable unsettling involvement in the entertainment industry being a specific point of emphasis throughout Taylor's narrative. It's presented as this systematic, almost industrial-scale process of dehumanization, designed to create perfectly compliant, unremembering human instruments.
The mechanics of programming and control.
Okay, so let's shift from the history to the alleged mechanics. How is this programming, this control, supposedly implemented, the step-by-step process to create these human instruments?
Right, the how-to, basically. The process, as described, starts with creating what are called files, or alters, within the person's mind.
It's files, like computer files.
Kinda, yeah. These distinct personality states are allegedly created through a ruthless, systematic combination of trauma, repetition, and reinforcement.
Trauma, repetition, reinforcement.
Okay. And once these alters or files are established, they can supposedly be activated by specific access codes or passwords. Essentially, pre-programmed cues or commands given by the programmer, designed to bring specific personalities forward for specific tasks.
Like switching programs on a computer.
That's the metaphor used. The author describes this internal landscape not just as a fractured mind, but as an elaborate internal computer program in the brain, designed for maximum resilience and control.
How complex are we talking?
Apparently incredibly complex, complete with numerous backup programs, mirrors, shadows, indicating this redundant, self-repairing system of control, meant to be virtually unbreakable.
Wow.
This internal structure is portrayed as a double helix, with 7 distinct levels meticulously layered for depth. And this whole internal system, according to Taylor, is overseen by an internal programmer, almost an omniscient internal construct, and gatekeepers, which the author suggests the victim might perceive as demonic entities within the system.
Demonic entities, okay. And survivors describe seeing things internally.
Yes. According to the source, survivors commonly describe a range of recurring internal images reflecting this compartmentalization and control.
Like what kind of images?
Things like trees, often the Kabbalistic tree of life with complex roots, symbolizing the branching altars, infinity loops for endless trauma cycles, ancient symbols, letters, maybe as trigger cues, spider webs showing the entrapping nature of the control.
Makes sense.
Mirrors or shattering glass, signifying dissociation. Masks for different personas, castles, mazes representing internal strongholds designed to confuse demons, monsters, aliens, embodying the terror.
Yeah.
But also seemingly innocuous things. Seashells, butterflies, snakes, ribbons, bows, flowers, inherently common external triggers or internal metaphors. Hourglasses, clocks for time control. Robots, symbolizing the dehumanized state. And even detailed schematics of computer circuitry boards, emphasizing the technological, systematic nature of the alleged control.
So these images aren't random, they're part of the structure.
That's the claim. They reflect the internal landscape and serve as potent triggers themselves.
So building on that internal architecture, The source details specific levels of Monarch programming, each designed for different functions, like creating specialized human assets.
Precisely. It's presented as a classification system of control. Let's break down these alleged levels.
Okay.
First, there's ALPHA. This is the general or base control programming, designed for foundational obedience and functionality. Characterized by extremely pronounced memory retention far beyond normal, plus increased physical strength and visual acuity.
Ow.
Reportedly done by deliberately subdividing the personality, creating a left brain right brain division, then achieving a programmed union through specific neuron pathway stimulation, making the individual hyper-efficient, allegedly.
Okay, alpha. What's next?
Beta, explicitly called sexual programming.
Hmm.
This level allegedly eliminates moral convictions, inhibitions, boundaries, stimulating primitive sexual instincts, rendering the victim, in the programmer's view, devoid of moral compunction or consent. The source notes distinct cat, alters sexualized personas might emerge here, designed for prostitution.
Beta, sexual programming. Got it.
Then delta, chillingly known as killer programming, reportedly developed for training special agents or soldiers for covert ops. Achieving optimal adrenal output, controlled aggression. Subjects are said to be devoid of fear, ruthlessly efficient, often with embedded self-destruct or suicide instructions if compromised.
Self-destruct. Wow. Delta.
Theta is presented as psychic programming, more esoteric, advanced. Claim that individuals from bloodliner families, multi-generational satanic cults showed greater inherent propensity for alleged telepathic abilities due to generational conditioning.
Psychic abilities. Seriously.
That's the claim. And due to perceived limits of purely psychological methods, various electronic mind control systems were allegedly developed. Biomedical human telemetry devices, brain implants, directed energy lasers using microwaves or electromagnetics, used with advanced computers, satellite tracking, a literal tech-augmented control system.
Okay, theta, psychic and tech.
Omega is a self-destruct program, also known as code green, inducing suicidal tendencies or self-mutilation, generally activated, the source says, when the victim starts therapy or interrogation and too much memory recovers. A fail-safe to prevent exposure.
Omega, the failsafe.
And finally, JAMA, a sophisticated system of deception, designed to elicit misinformation, misdirection from the victim, presented as intricately intertwined with demonology, the occult, and said to possess a terrifying ability to regenerate itself if inappropriately deactivated, implying this deeply embedded, resilient counterintelligence.
Gamma, deception. Wow, that's an incredibly detailed, disturbing taxonomy of control.
It really is.
So the methods used to actually induce this, to reinforce it, you mentioned trauma.
Yes, the author states this initial foundational process begins incredibly early, from birth, maybe even in the womb, continuing intensely up to about age 6. The primary methods, she alleges, involve repeated systematic electroshock therapy, ECT, combined with severe sexual abuse, to induce the profound dissociation needed to create distinct alters.
Electroshock and sexual abuse on infants and young children.
That's the horrifying claim. The source goes into almost clinical detail describing manufacturing the mind-controlled slave techniques, painting this picture of an almost assembly line approach.
How so?
Methods included psychic driving, keeping institutionalized patients in drug-induced comas for weeks, repeated electroshocks, auditory messages via special helmets, double-bind coercion, contradictory commands to create mental paralysis, pleasure-pain reversals pairing torture with moments of perceived love to blur reality, severe sensory deprivation, powerful drugs to alter brain chemistry, make the mind more malleable.
It sounds like torture, basically.
It does. The next stage, allegedly, involved embedding detailed commands using high-tech headsets, computer-driven generators emitting inaudible sound waves affecting neuron pathways, virtual reality devices projecting pulsating lights, subliminal messages, split-screen visuals, often followed by high-voltage electroshock for complete memory dissolution. Conscious mind remembers nothing.
Leaving no trace consciously.
Right. The author even quotes chilling clinical instructions from an alleged programmer on creating new children, applying Vaseline, wires for electroshock to pressure points on a baby, calibrating current, eliciting physical responses like, yes, 1 finger, no, raise 2, as grotesque obedience training.
That's just sickening.
It is. And the narrative emphasizes the insidious use of natural triggers. Grandfather clocks, church chimes, dog barks, car sounds, moon phases, fireflies, to embed commands.
Why natural triggers?
Chosen precisely to avoid suspicion, allegedly, guaranteeing a child would encounter them throughout life, assuring continuous control. The programmer Janus chillingly claims they personally assigned 12 babies as a child, indicating the generational nature, and boasted of a knack for troubleshooting haywire programming, highlighting this systematic engineering-like approach to human degradation.
And this programming wasn't just confined to labs or secret sessions, right? You mentioned everyday things becoming triggers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The source claims programmers very cleverly use common things and ideas to guarantee that a child will be sure to encounter these things throughout their lifetime, thus assuring control. So everyday objects, pop culture, even beloved childhood memories become insidious, deeply embedded triggers.
Which makes escape seem impossible.
That's the implication. This is where the narrative gets particularly disturbing in scope, suggesting almost omnipresent manipulation. It asserts chillingly that the Disney parks, MGM studios, Disney movies, Disney characters, and Disney songs have been used in conjunction with the programming.
Disney. Seriously.
That's the claim. The profound familiarity, the emotional connection supposedly ensures easy, reliable triggering throughout a victim's life. Taylor acknowledges this is probably one of the hardest things to believe for Disney fans, yet presents it as core to her experience.
Oh, wow. Okay, what other examples?
Numerous specific examples are given, turning the mundane menacing.
Go on.
The telephone is cited as a major trigger. The ring, dial tones causing severe panic attacks or dissociation due to alleged pairing with electroshock.
Just the sound.
Yeah. Animals, too. Dolphins is a common program. Birds used to enforce silence. Children told birds would tell on them, instilling deep fear.
Using childhood fears.
Childhood games twisted into terror tools. The game of life, no place to run, no place to hide, allegedly physically acted out repeatedly during programming to instill terror. The lesson you could never get away. Utter powerlessness.
Horrifying.
TV shows and music explicitly implicated The Wizard of Oz and It's a Good Life as universally known triggers. Follow the yellow brick road, specifically mentioned as a common, ingrained command phrase.
Follow the yellow brick road.
Wow. Even food triggers. Oreo cookies, M&Ms. Programmed individuals allegedly develop specific, rigid consumption patterns, eating by color sequence, avoiding colors, becoming visibly distressed if asked to alter them, revealing deep subconscious control.
Over cookies.
Apparently. She points to Stephen King's works, too. Novels like Insomnia, with trigger phrases like, "we never sleep," and the all-seeing eye, allegedly used deliberately. Integrating popular media.
So pop culture used as weapons.
That's the assertion. And she recounts Heavenly Waver and Alice in Wonderland programming during alleged Shriner abuse, demonstrating the pervasive, varied, seemingly random nature of these supposed triggers, meticulously integrated into every facet of life, turning reality itself into a control mechanism.
The network of alleged abusers and operations.
Okay, now we get into maybe the most staggering and, profoundly controversial claims in the book. The alleged network of abusers and their operations.
This is where the names come out.
Exactly. Her book implicates an extraordinary list of high-profile individuals, many internationally recognized, often through their alleged sexual exploitation of her, all within this described systematic, organized program of mind control. It's a shocking roster.
The claims are extensive, deeply unsettling, reaching into the highest echelons of power and celebrity. Taylor specifically alleges Henry Kissinger was the mastermind of her U.S. government and international mind file use.
The mastermind.
Yeah, stating chillingly he took up residence in her brain and never paid rent, implying complete psychological invasion. She claims he built her as a safe arm to reach out and touch the council, using her as a human conduit for strategic logistics, secret communication globally,
A human conduit.
controlling her mind files, the alters, with specific numerical time-based access codes. Retrieving info or activating personalities at will, she claims.
Okay, who else?
Bob Hope, the entertainer, shockingly identified as her owner, allegedly used her extensively for sex and as a message courier, supposedly introduced her to his famous friends, managed 8 personalities within her initially, later reduced to 4 on Kissinger's advice for efficiency.
Bob Hope is her owner. That's
Yeah,
somebody.
and she implicates numerous U.S. presidents, a list including JFK, LBJ, Gerald Ford, Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, Jimmy Carter, George Bush Sr., Bill Clinton.
Multiple presidents.
Yeah.
What does she claim they did?
Allegedly used her for sex, message delivery, and seeding ideas into their environments without their conscious knowledge via her programmed alters. Nixon's trust, she claims, built over time, allowing her use in ever more influential circumstances. Reagan allegedly seen as pliable, a good actor for the council. George Bush Sr. specifically named in relation to the alleged abuse of her own daughter, Kelly, a devastating claim.
Seeding ideas. Like Inception, almost.
That's the implication. Other notables. Leah Iacocca, corporate head, allegedly received bank account numbers from her on his private jet with oral sex as part of the transaction.
Wow.
Bing Crosby, another icon, reportedly given to Bob Hope as a sexual gift, found by Crosby in a closet, naked but for a ribbon and a card with instructions. Michael Jackson, alleged to have been abused as a child before performances, suggesting a multi-generational pattern in entertainment. And Jane Fonda, cited as part of an eternal youth experiment, receiving counsel messages. Exercise deemed necessary for anti-aging in this alleged program. Blending high-profile names with truly bizarre claims, the sheer number and prominence of individuals named is central, deeply disturbing, and highly controversial.
It really is. And the locations where this alleged programming and exploitation happened, they're just as diverse and incongruous as the people. Government buildings, universities, private estates, military bases, suggesting a network permeating everything.
These varied sites, Taylor claims, were meticulously chosen, utilized to facilitate the total automation, even of people, all for the cause. The ubiquity underscores the alleged system's pervasive nature.
Where specifically?
Within government and intelligence, she alleges activity at highly sensitive spots. National Archives, Pentagon, State Department, Federal Reserve Building, used for government mine files, she says. The White House, paradoxically, where she claims she did her best work, influencing legislation, seeding ideas through sex, an unwitting conduit.
Influencing legislation via programmed sex slaves. That's the claim.
That's the claim. Military bases identified as crucial sites, where the final product, the fully programmed slave, was created in reprogramming centers or near-death trauma centers. China Lake Naval Weapons Center, Fort Detrick, the Presidio mentioned, used not just for programming, but for chilling demonstrations to military and politicians, showcasing the capabilities. Academic institutions disturbingly implicated, blurring lines between research and sinister experiments. USC Dental School. She claims she unknowingly placed miniature electronic transmitters in patients' teeth.
Transmitters in teeth.
That's the claim. Suggesting widespread surveillance or control. USC Engineering School. Noted for advanced biomedical engineering, brain implants, projects connected to DARPA, NIMH, implying a direct link between cutting-edge science and mind control research. UCLA, where she alleges being drugged, getting instructions via earphones, demonstrating telekinesis, immunity to fire to astonish doctors, showcasing alleged extreme programmed capabilities. McGill University also mentioned Dr. Ewen Cameron's psychic driving experiments, connecting her claims to documented historical abuses.
So universities used as labs.
Allegedly. And finally, corporate and private locations provided clandestine settings, opulent Rockefeller parties, Wrigley Mansion on Catalina, where powerful men allegedly met. She was assigned for sex. Palm Springs golf courses, hostess for Bob Hope Classic. Long Beach, tied to Uncle Charlie, alleged slave auctions. Key Biscayne, Vive Rebozo's abuse. Hollywood studios, private jets, all serving as secret stages for this alleged global operation. The incredible breadth paints a picture of a system deeply embedded in society's fabric.
And at the very top of this alleged pyramid, this entity, Brice Taylor consistently calls the Council, a shadowy, supremely powerful group pulling global strings without public knowledge.
Taylor describes the Council exactly like that, a secret and powerful group of men who are not public. Operating entirely in shadows, identities concealed, presented as controlling vast money, exerting unparalleled influence over people in key positions across all sectors, all without public awareness.
And their goal?
Allegedly, nothing less than world domination, a one-world government, achieved by creating a massive force of worker bees, controlled slaves, to execute their agenda.
Worker bees.
The source attributes astonishing, terrifying powers to this council, claiming they can ensure the election of a president, bring a celebrity to fame, decide the fate of a nation, bring about war, incite riot, bring down whole cities or countries, kill out a certain ethnic race, introduce a new chemical into the food of the masses for control, loose upon a community a new virus, even decide which people are to live and which are to die.
That's absolute power, basically.
That's how it's presented. It's alleged that programmed people are used to further the cause, each placed in strategic positions, from the janitor all the way up to the school district supervisors and on into the state and federal government, implying total infiltration, a system so pervasive no sphere is untouched.
Fail-safe, you said earlier.
Yeah, the system is believed to be fail-safe, unbreakable, adaptable, can even allegedly be commanded by universal signals subtly embedded in mass media, making it an all-encompassing threat to human freedom, with control mechanisms hiding in plain sight, ensuring the system remains functional undetected.
The struggle for freedom and a final message.
Given the, just horrific nature and sheer scope of these claims, the author's struggle for freedom, for recovery, it's presented as this central, deeply painful, almost unending part of her journey.
Absolutely. She details an extensive, incredibly difficult process, years of intensive daily therapy, but also periods of profound deception, forced reaccessing by her alleged controllers, making integration a constant battle.
So not just healing, but fighting off attempts to pull her back in.
Exactly. The path to recovery, as she describes it, was fraught with external resistance and internal sabotage. She points to the False Memory Syndrome Foundation as a well-funded group she believes was allegedly used to discredit survivors of ritual abuse and their therapists, casting doubt, undermining healing efforts.
Actively working against survivors.
That's her belief. Her own therapist, Dr. Margaret Paul, reportedly feared losing her license for treating high-level survivors like Taylor, indicating the perceived pressure, the powerful forces trying to silence those who helped.
Wow.
A particularly poignant account involves Mark Phillips, initially her deprogrammer, who later allegedly denied anything had happened to her, leading Taylor to suspect he wasn't a liberator, but a containment agent, deliberately delaying her truth.
A containment agent pretending to help.
That's her suspicion. And the harassment campaigns she endured are chillingly detailed. Relentless opposition, constant tailing, tapped phones, tampered mail delayed months, even years, staged auto accidents, blackmail attempts, even repeated rape by her own brother Rick, whom she says was one of her programmed controllers, revealing the terrifying proximity of alleged abusers, the absolute violation of family bonds. It paints this vivid picture of a system determined to keep secrets buried, victims controlled.
The impact on her family, you mentioned that's a recurring, deeply distressing theme, highlighting the generational nature of the alleged abuse.
It is indeed. Taylor emphasizes her children. Kevin, Kelly, Danny were also allegedly targeted, suffered debilitating effects. Kelly's experience is recounted as extraordinarily severe. Catatonia, multiple suicide attempts, heartbreakingly demonstrating the legacy of this alleged trauma.
And her husband.
Yes, the harrowing discovery that her own husband was also allegedly programmed, unknowingly participated in her abuse and that of their children. This revelation made it all more complex, agonizing, profoundly isolating. She found herself without a safe haven, even at home. She states she found herself curled into a fetal position on the floor more nights than I care to think about, crying out in desperation and in a pain that never seems to go away. Just a visceral expression of relentless suffering.
So how did she finally break through, find some recovery?
A truly significant breakthrough came with EEG neurofeedback. This technology, training brainwave patterns, helped her integrate quickly, learn to not dissociate. A critical step.
Using technology to heal from alleged technological control.
Exactly. She recognizes the profound irony, using the same technology that was previously used to control me to now set me free, turning the slavers' tools against them. She found talk therapy alone, while helpful, was insufficient for the deep-seated, technologically reinforced programming.
Interesting. Any other breakthroughs?
She recounts the unexpected gift of Hurricane Aniki. Despite destroying her home, it inadvertently helped her break free from intense containment, alleged reaccessing. A bizarre twist of fate. Critically, her daughter Kelly's own specific fragmented memories, white vans, London, hand signals, doctors drugging her, destroying her brain, powerfully validated her mother's account, gave Brice crucial corroboration.
Her daughter remembered things too.
Yes. And Kelly's purposeful act of dropping watches, defying programming that dictated she lose time or be harmed for disobedience, further illustrates the alleged insidious control and the struggle for autonomy.
Beyond her personal journey, her family's healing, she offers a broader message, right? A call to action.
Yes, an urgent call for discernment. Her central message is the imperative need for humanity to overcome denial, to actively question information from all sources, to use what she calls spiritual discernment, to face what she believes is a terrifying hidden truth about control.
And she challenges the listener directly.
She does. Challenges you, society, to consider why we often protect the carefully constructed, media-portrayed personas of the famous and powerful, even facing such disturbing allegations. Her assertion is circ. Her alleged controllers are counting on you to believe the media image they have thrust forward. They are counting on you to do nothing, implying public complacency is their greatest asset.
Doing nothing lets it continue.
That's the idea. For Taylor, the stakes are ultimate. For me, there is no price tag on freedom and morality. It is priceless. Elevating her struggle to a universal fight for liberty and integrity, she likens the council to the old, worn, frazzled Wizard of Oz hiding behind the curtain, suggesting their immense power crumbles when exposed to truth, public awareness, positioning truth as the ultimate weapon, a rallying cry for awareness, collective resistance.
So ultimately, despite everything she claims she endured, she presents a story of transformation.
A profound personal transformation. Yes, she asserts she is now fully integrated and deprogrammed, having overcome the alleged control. Far from retreating, she became a passionate spokesperson, advocating for others who allegedly suffered similar horrors.
And faith played a big role.
Her narrative profoundly highlights how her unwavering faith, her connection to God, served as her ultimate guide, her source of strength, especially given the horrific satanic ritual abuse she alleges. There's a powerful irony she points to. The very training her controllers gave her backfired on them, ultimately giving her the insights, the detailed knowledge, the courage to expose them.
Using their own tools against them.
Exactly. Despite the alleged wealth and celebrity she was exposed to, she states her desire to have chosen a simple, basic life, enriched with love and deep connection to God and my family, over any material gain or fame, emphasizing where she found true richness, peace. Her journey as presented is one of profound suffering, leading to this unshakable determination to shed light on what she believes is a hidden evil operating at the highest levels. So connecting this to the bigger picture, Brice Taylor's story as she presents it is a stark reminder, isn't it, of potential vulnerabilities in human consciousness, the immense, often unseen power dynamics in the covert world, the chilling implications of systemic, intergenerational abuse. It really challenges us to look beyond conventional explanations, consider the profound, unsettling implications of such widespread claims.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? This deep dive into Thanks for the Memories, it invites you not just to listen passively, but to truly hear, to perceive, to comprehend what the author lays out. As Brice Taylor herself references, quoting ancient wisdom, "Be careful what you are hearing, the measure of thought and study you give to truth, that you will hear me with measure of virtue and knowledge that comes back to you, and more will be given to you who hear." It's really a call to active intellectual, maybe even spiritual engagement.
And ultimately, this narrative leaves us with a truly provocative thought, something to really chew on. If, as the author meticulously suggests, this level of insidious control, pervasive manipulation, has allegedly been operating within plain sight for decades, maybe centuries, what other hidden elephants might be bellowing unheard in the deeper, darker caves of our collective reality, just waiting for us to truly see the problem, acknowledge their presence?
It's a profound call to active listening, rigorous critical thinking, and perhaps, a fundamental reevaluation of what we consider possible within the fabric of our society. We hope this deep dive has provided you with a comprehensive, definitely challenging understanding of this complex and deeply disturbing source material.